Hello everybody, today I will be showing you how to actually play the Grob opening. This opening is for people who play a lot of bullet or people who think they're funny like me. So I've made a few videos playing the Grob opening, and I've made a joke video teaching the Grob opening in quotation marks because I was trolling. But if you want to learn how to actually play the Grob opening and the ideas behind it, then you've come to the right place. I will be showing you how to play the best opening called the Grob, and it starts with G4, of course. The Grob's attack is generally considered to be one of the worst starting moves, and is likely the single worst starting move for white. Man, shut up. So, their best move is not actually G5, I was trolling, but if they want to do the same thing, then you can just copy their moves, and you get the standard Grob setup. But if they do play the best move, which is d5, e5 is slightly worse, but it still works. You have to play bishop to g2, and yes, they take your pawn, but in fact, you actually win the pawn back no matter what if you play right. Sometimes I don't play right, just straight up lose the pawn, but yeah, you can win the pawn back no matter what. It's actually forced, and I'll show you how it's forced. So first off, they can't actually take this because they lose the rook. And funny enough, the position is so bad that even after winning the exchange, you're still worse. The engine says negative 0.7. You have to play f3 here, by the way, not knight f3, because they will push this pawn, and you can't really move the knight because it's pinned to the rook. So you'll have a horrible position if you play knight f3. f3, while usually awful, is the only good move in this position. They will play e5, and then you should probably, this is weird, I don't know why the engine suggests this, but you should probably play this to stop the opponent from going any further, and they will just, I don't know, the engine is just telling people to develop, so they're going to just develop, and you bring your queen over here, which is why you push the c pawn, and you will see that a lot in like the Grob opening, because that's just what's usually played. They do not have to move the bishop at any point, actually, until you actually get the rook out of the way. So until then, you are not going to be taking this bishop. If you move the rook out of the way and the bishop is still here, take it. You can also attack the bishop, but it won't do anything since you can't take it anyway because of the knight. So yeah, if you see somebody lose their rook like this, play f3, stop the pawn from advancing any further, and just play chess. And if they do advance the pawn, by the way, you can take the bishop because now the queen can't see the rook. So they can't really ever do that. And here's what happens if you play knight f3. You have this. No, not that. Oh, you actually do have that, which is even worse because now you're going to have a horrible position. They're going to take, probably, with the bishop, and then you're going to just like, you're going to have a lot of weaknesses. Your position is so messed up. It's telling you to castle in this position, which is actually awful because you have an open g file and you're going to get checkmated later. This is a horrible place to castle if you have an open g file. I've castled once in the game with an open g file, never again. Always castle queenside if you can with an open g file. But if they don't fall for the c4 trick, they will probably play c6 or e6. It really doesn't matter because both are going to be played anyway, probably. You can trade off. It's easier to trade off. And you can either attack this pawn again with the queen or with the knight. Now, here's a little trick. Regardless of which one you play, either way, if they play e6 to defend the pawn, they're going to lose their bishop. Because the reason you can't play this right away is because the bishop will come back to block. But because of the move e6, this fork actually works, and then you just take their bishop. So yeah, not a very good start for them. They don't want to play e6 that early. They want to play knight f6 to defend both the pawn and the bishop. And now you can't do this anymore. The reason you have to play this now and attack this pawn is because if you play this move, then they will come back with the bishop and you can't get the pawn anymore. You're just down a pawn. So yeah, you definitely don't want to be doing that. You want to move the queen here if they've already done that. They actually should not be worrying about this pawn, because if they do this, they're going to actually get screwed up. They need to defend the pawn in the center and not the pawn on the side, because center control is much more important. Now e6 is the best move because it completely defends it. And now you can either just take the pawn, which is what most players do, or you can move the bishop away. Now the bishop might be kind of annoying since it will control this side and you kind of want to castle here because you don't want to castle into an open g file. But you can, the engine recommends you to push the pawn. I think this is slightly better, but the engine prefers this. But we are not engines, so we should not be worrying about like slight differences. Yes, it might be the best engine move, but will it challenge the opposing player the most? Probably not, because this... What is it really pressuring? It's just pressuring this. I don't even know why the engine wants that more. I think this is better because it attacks the side you probably want to castle on. And it doesn't block the pawns from being pushed on this side. So yeah, after this, you should definitely take the pawn. If you don't take the pawn, you're down a pawn. Now they'll move the knight away. And then this will happen. Now if they play e6 first, you actually have to worry about them trapping you. The Grob opening is a very trappy opening, but there actually is a trap against it that could be used if you play e6 first. Now after they do this, they're going to play c6. And it's technically slightly worse for them because they don't have as much control of the center, while e6 would have a pawn in the center. Now there's no more center pawns. You now take this, and instead of taking this pawn, you should move your queen away or move your knight here, because if you take this pawn, you are losing, because now rook c6, rook c8 will be played, and you're going to lose your queen. If you move your queen away, you get hit with this and you lose your queen anyway because it's a forced move, and if you move it somewhere else, you get checkmated. So yeah, you don't want this to happen. Your open c file is a big problem. This is the only time I've ever seen a back rank checkmate in an opening, but yeah, the Grob is very wacky. You don't want to get back rank checkmated in an opening, so you don't want to take this pawn. Don't be greedy, just move your queen away or move your knight to the front. Moving the knight to the front threatens the take. What does this do again? Yeah, it just... Your queen will be snatching more pawns if this happens, but your position is going to be a lot worse because, like, I mean, look, they have way more development, more open files than you. Your position just kind of sucks if you just keep taking pawns. So yeah, if they play e6 first, there's going to be this trap and you don't want to fall for it. So don't fall for it, just develop your knight. Now, that's all. I think all of the traps against d5. Alternatively, instead of taking the pawn, they could either play e5, which I'll get into later. It's a very funny trap if they play e5. But if they play c6, you can't really do anything. There's no more traps right now. So if they play this, you kind of just... You kind of actually transpose into a regular Grob opening. If this happens, but if they take this, then I don't know. You're probably going to be screwed. It's better in this position to just defend the pawn than act like you're playing against Indian attack, but with a moved g-pawn. It feels weird. Now let's get into the e5 moveset. So first you play bishop g2, not d4. At least I won't recommend it. The engine is saying to do it because it challenges the center, but there's not enough traps for d4, I don't think. So you play bishop g2, and if your opponent plays h5, there is already a trap you can play. You play h3, and you gambit a pawn. And now you would push d4, and if they take another pawn, you can take the bishop here, and if they get greedy, you win the rook. Oh, my fucking computer. Okay, my computer's back online now. It registers everything. Then you snatch the rook away, and it's still worse for you because look at your king side. So they already moved their e-pawn. They actually can't really avoid it because no matter what, the bishop can just go there. I don't think they can stop it like at all. They can block the rook, but then this just gives the pawn back in the center, which is okay for you with a drawish position now. They can also do this, like, they can also play h5 immediately, and you can kind of have the same trap. Maybe you can push a pawn in the center first and then take it. If they play e6, you're screwed. You can't have the trap anymore. But yeah, if they play e5, then they play h5, you have this trap in mind. It's very funny, and if you ever get to play it in the game, post it because it's fucking hilarious. Like, especially if they decide to move their d pawn as well, because you just get this goofy position where the bishop is on d7, giving the king a check, and you win the rook. It's crazy. Now, the most common move is not actually h5, it is d5, and now you have another hilarious trap. Push the g pawn. Now, if they don't take this pawn with the queen, then you should cry, because now your pawn is just out there, and it's going to just be a target. They should probably support the pawn or something, and everything will be fine for them. But if they do take this pawn, you're still in a worse position. The engine says negative 0.7, but you take the center pawn now. And if they ever counterattack your bishop, you don't play d3. The engine says this because it gives you a slightly better position than knight f3, but this doesn't have any traps. If you play knight f3, they have many options to move their queen. They most likely will not play this, and instead will play queen to g2, and they will lose their queen, pretty much. If they don't move their king forward, then you're going to win their queen. If they move the king forward, then you kick the queen out, and they'll be in a much worse position because you just have so many pieces in at their king. You're going to win. Probably. It's +2, so you have an advantage. But if they take the bishop, or if they move the king and take the bishop later, you have this move. And if they take the rook, then you take back with the knight. They should take the rook, it's the best move, but if they play this, they get forked. Please tell me of an opening that has this same trap. That will be like crazy, because you've never seen this in another opening. You're up a queen, you're completely winning. GG. And if they don't fall for the trap, you're not completely winning, and you should cry. So, yeah. And this works for any other counterattack too. Any other move, pretty much. They do this, you have this, and if they do this, then you have the same move. Even if it's not a counterattack, even if it's like, what, c6, you have the knight attack, the queen might go here, and you have to take. So no matter what they do, unless they do this, which they lose their rook if they do that, you have that move. I think the only way to like stop it, if other than the queen move, I don't really think they can prevent this trap from existing like right away. Maybe so the knight usually goes like to here, right, to there. So if they play like f6 or h6, which is really weird, then you can't perform the trap anymore. You can still play it, I think. If they play like what, this, yeah. Either way, they're not gonna they're not gonna lose their queen, but you still have a better position. So they should not be playing queen to g2 anyway, even if the trap isn't there. Yes, you can't fork him anymore, because if this, then this. But you're going to be in a better position. Their queen is going to a weird place. You can attack the center now, and you have a comfortable position. The computer says it's +1, +0.9. So that's the e5 trap. If they don't take, then you suffer. You have to play h4, and you just have a really weird position. Now, they might not try to cover the center, but they might try to scholars mate you. If they try this, then what you gotta do is you have to defend your G pawn. This will be important later, trust me. If they go queen to h4 and not queen to f6, if they go queen to f6, you play the same move, but you don't have the trap anymore. You have e3. If they push the knights, then you push the pawn, and the bishop should move somewhere. They could move a check, move away, but it'll be a much worse position for them regardless. If they take the pawn, the queen is gone. Because guess what? You have the knight attack. If the queen moves here, you take the pawn with a double attack. I mean, technically the queen could move away, but then you just win the bishop. So you have a double attack. Their queen is either gone or their bishop is gone. I saw this trap somewhere else. I forgot that the queen could actually just run away. Yeah, but the bishop will be lost. So technically more of a double attack, not like a complete queen trap. But yeah, you see this plus 5.2, they might as well have lost their queen. Yeah, they might as well have lost their queen because look at how bad this position is. You block anyway. They have to block or something, and then you just win. You have such a better position than them. You have pawns pushing the king side, which is good now because they're down material and can't attack you very much. And you're just completely winning. I mean, look at all this development. They have less material and less development. And yeah, that's GG, unless you manage to throw the game. So that covers all the e5 traps. But I forgot something. There is another e5 trap, and it has the same concept. If they push the knight forward, you play bishop g2, of course. And if they don't play any of these moves, and they play knight f6, and now what they might do, they should be putting their knight back because they can attack this weak pawn with other things, and they might have a good position. They don't have to move their knight forward. They always do. If they move it here, and that's actually the best move, then you both defend your pawn and strike the center, and the position gets really weird, but you have a better position because it's plus 0.6. If they move it here, so many people do this. You play h3 and their knight is trapped. They can't move here because of the e5 pawn, and they can't move to either of these squares because of the g5 pawn. So they have to take on f2. That's their best move. And yes, technically you're only up a point of material after all of these happen. But yeah, you're up a knight. These positions are probably hard to defend though because your king is in such an awkward position. And these positions are probably really hard to deal with though because your king is in an awkward position. And your king is open. There's no pawns around here. But you are up a knight. The engine says it's +1 because technically you're only up a point of material. I mean a knight for 2 pawns. But you do have an extra knight which you can use for attack, and the Grob opening is good for attacks. And you can just play accordingly. There's no more traps at this point. You just want a knight. Now sometimes they won't play the exact moves I've mentioned, and your ideas are just to form a nice center and try to bait them into taking this pawn. Well, your ideas are pretty straightforward. You bring the queen to c3, you put the bishop on g2, and they both gang up on this pawn and this knight if they move it there. And remember the Grob opening, they don't want to move their knight here. They want to move they don't want to move the knight to c6. They want to move the knight to d7. Because if they move the knight to c6, now this pawn is going to babysit the knight. But sometimes the knight will be taken. Or sometimes the bishop will move away and the pawn can no longer guard it because it's going to be taken by the queen. So for example, in this position, if they take the pawn, now they're going to get forked. And I mean, technically the rook is still defended, but the knight's not defended, and there's no way for it to go. Because if the knight moves, then guess what? You can just take the rook, and the bishop takes back, and you're up a full rook. So sometimes when they move the knight to c6, you have this little trick. And if they don't understand the correct move, or if the knight was back here and they move it to c6, or if you take this and instead of moving to d7, they move to c6, which is even worse, because then you take the knight, then you take the queen, then you take the rook. Like here, let me just show you what I mean. If it's already like right here, and then you do this, and they do this, then oh right, that happens. But you can still take the rook because of this and this. Or you can take this. They have to take with the queen, and then you take the. Nope, not like that. You're gonna lose. Then you take the rook, and they lose the game. Their entire queen side has been completely destroyed thanks to the amazing grab opening, and you're now up a piece and a rook. +7, they're completely losing. You should not be losing this unless you're in bullet. So if the knight is already there, they have to like probably have to just lose their rook. They can't really do anything about it because either way, the bishop and the queen will take the rook, and then you just win the game. So yeah, even if they don't play the exact moves, you still have this same ideas regarding them. You have knight to c3 if the pawn isn't there. If they didn't push this pawn, or and like let's say, sometimes they want to be positional, sometimes they want to be aggressive. Either way, you have the same plans. You want to take in the center. You want your bishop to take in the center, and you want to be aggressive. And now another trap I forgot to mention. See, there's so many traps I forget about them because this opening just has so many. You can't really like memorize them all. But when they happen, I know that it's a trap, and like I get to play it, and it's very fun. So for example, sometimes they don't think about this. Sometimes I like do something like that, and guess what? You take the knight because the queen defends the bishop, and they can't take back with the rook. I mean, it tells you to take back with the rook because engine is crazy. They want to see the black side to lose a rook instead of a knight. I mean, you can't really do anything else, I guess. But yeah, they're going to lose a piece this way if they don't defend the f7 square. If you take in the center, if you get to take in the center, then you can have an attack on the f7 square they have to deal with, and it's going to be pretty bad for them. So the plans are move your queen to b3. Shit, I reset the entire board. Plans are to move the queen to like b3, attack this b7 square. Always try to put pressure on it if you can. And if they instead decide to reinforce the center and you get to take in the center, instead of attacking b3, you attack. I mean, instead of attacking b7, you attack f7, and it could get very dangerous for your opponent really quick. There's so many traps that even I can't keep track of them all because I've had to remember 2 new traps that I forgot about in this video alone that I had to re-mention later in the video. As a person who plays the Grob opening so much, I forget about those traps. So your opponent, if they don't know what they're doing, will probably fall into one of them. So yeah, that's basically all the basics of the openings of the Grob. So yeah, that's basically what you should do in the opening phase of the Grob. Get all these traps in, and if you can't get these traps in, just play good chess and hope for the best. If I will make a part 2 covering what should happen in the middle game if your opponent survives, and ideas you should be using in the Grob opening. But until then, stay tuned. I will see you guys later. Thank you guys for watching if you are watching, and peace out. See ya.